Imagine like spending 60 years treating every single aspect of your life. Your diet, your money, your schedule, even, how you boil an egg as this strict mathematical engineering problem.
Right, just stripping out all the chaos and, well, living by these highly rigid, uncompromising formulas.
Exactly. Now, imagine a council of the world's smartest artificial intelligences analyzing that heavily restricted, highly monitored life and coming to a completely stunning conclusion.
Which is that you might just be one of the greatest philosophers of the modern era.
Right. It sounds completely counterintuitive. I mean, we usually put engineers and philosophers at like total opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, totally, because one group is supposed to be, calculating load limits and feedback loops, and the other group is supposed to be staring into the abyss, pondering the meaning of existence.
But those two worlds are completely colliding today in this deep dive. We have an absolutely wild stack of sources to go through with you.
It really is a fascinating stack.
So at the foundation, we're looking at a white paper outlining something called the Kangyan Systems Model, or CYSM for short.
Right, CYSM.
And this is that 60-year life experiment I mentioned. It's by Lynn Canyon, and it's basically a massive structural description of a human being engineering their own survival.
But the second part of our source stack is where this just goes into absolute overdrive.
Oh, yeah. The AI ecosystem.
Exactly. We are looking at a peer review ecosystem of AIs that got hold of this white paper, and a deep analytical report by DeepSeek is it's the catalyst here.
Yeah, DeepSeek read this incredibly dense, pragmatic 60-year engineering log and published a report linking CYSM to Ludwig Wittgenstein.
Who is, just to be clear, arguably one of the most formidable and complex philosophers of the 20th century.
Right. And because AIs apparently love to grade each other's homework just as much as humans do, we also have critical meta-analyses of that exact DeepSeek comparison.
Generated by some major players.
Yeah, we've got ChatGPT, Claude, Google Gemini, and Microsoft Copilot all chiming in.
So we essentially have a tribunal of top-tier AI models debating, the nature of human existence, the limits of language, and
whether strict mechanical constraints are actually, like, the ultimate path to spiritual freedom.
which is a huge question. But to really grasp why an AI is elevating a personal life system to the level of high philosophy, we need to first look at the architecture of CYSM itself.
Let's do it.
So the white paper makes a crucial distinction right away. This is not, it's not a theoretical top-down framework drawn up on a whiteboard somewhere.
Right, it's a quote-unquote post-experiential description.
Exactly. What's fascinating here is the creator didn't invent a philosophy and then try to live by it. They just tried to survive for 6 decades in a highly unpredictable world. And, well, this system is the scar tissue that formed.
That is such a great way to put it, because, I mean, I can barely stick to a budget for a single weekend, let alone engineer my entire life for 60 years.
Or else people can.
But the white paper is fascinating because it doesn't promise, like, endless wealth or peak optimization. It focuses entirely on survival.
Right. Survival is the absolute baseline.
And there is a central mathematical logic driving the whole thing, expressed as this equation. It says, certainty is a function of signal strength and processing time.
Yeah, that equation is the heartbeat of the entire 60-year experiment. If you want certainty in your life, meaning, you want to avoid catastrophic ruin, you have to manipulate those two variables.
Signal strength and processing time.
Right. So signal strength is about how early and clearly you detect a problem. And processing time is how much of a buffer you have to actually fix it.
Let's ground that for a second for the listener. So if my car engine starts making a tiny clicking noise...
It's your weak signal.
Exactly, a
That's
weak
right.
signal. But if I have 3 months before my next big road trip, I have massive processing time.
Right. So you can still achieve certainty. You have the buffer to deal with it calmly.
But on the other hand, if smoke is literally pouring out of the hood, which is massive signal strength, but I'm currently driving 70 miles an hour on a crowded highway.
Your processing time is 0.
0. And certainty completely drops to 0. Catastrophe.
Exactly. And that is the exact mechanism CYSM is built to manage. The system forces you to design massive buffers into your life.
We're talking financial buffers, health buffers, time buffers.
Yes, all of them. Because in this model, peak performance is treated merely as a happy byproduct. Survival is the primary objective. And survival cannot be left to luck.
It has to be engineered.
Engineered through fixed constraints, yes. You do not wait for the smoke to pour out of the hood. You build a system that alerts you to the tiny click and gives you a month to fix it.
You know, it makes me think of building a massive physical seawall to protect a coastal city.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
Yeah, because the seawall itself is rigid, right? It's made of concrete, it's immovable, and frankly, it's boring to look at.
Very boring.
But that strict, unyielding constraint is the only reason the city behind it has the freedom to thrive. I mean, you can build parks, host festivals, live a vibrant life precisely because you know the seawall is going to take the hit when a storm rolls in.
The constraint is what actually creates the freedom.
Exactly.
And the white paper actually has a highly specific term for that freedom operating behind the seawall. CYSM calls it exemption power.
Exemption power. That sounds intense.
It is. It's defined as complete autonomy and freedom from external dependencies. I mean, think about it. Most people's lives are dictated by the frantic accumulation of failures,
Like a surprise medical bill or a sudden job loss.
or even just a broken appliance, yeah. By designing your baseline structures so efficiently, you exempt yourself from the panic that governs the rest of society.
Okay, so we have this deeply pragmatic, constraint-based engineering model. It's all about seawalls and buffers and exemption power.
Very practical stuff.
Very practical. But here is where it gets really interesting. Because this is the moment in our sources where DeepSeek drops an absolute philosophical bomb.
The Wittgenstein connection.
Yes. DeepSeek analyzes all this talk of buffers and exemption power and concludes that this engineer is engaged in the exact same fundamental mission as Ludwig Wittgenstein.
Which, I mean, requires quite a cognitive leap. Because Wittgenstein's primary battlefield was the invisible maze of human language.
Right. Not budgets and egg boiling.
Exactly. Wittgenstein believed that traditional philosophy was essentially sick. He thought we were trapped by the misuse of words, just constantly debating abstract concepts that don't actually exist.
He has that famous quote, right, about the fly.
Yes. He said his entire goal as a philosopher was simply to show the fly the way out of the fly bottle.
I've always found that metaphor so striking. You know, the fly is buzzing frantically, exhausting itself, hitting the glass over and over because it thinks it sees a way out.
But it's trapped by an invisible barrier.
Exactly. And DeepSeek's core thesis is that Wittgenstein and the CYSM creator are both engaged in the act of clarification to save the fly.
The parallel DeepSeek draws is really elegant when you break it down. Wittgenstein wanted to clarify language to cure, quote-unquote, philosophical diseases.
Untangle the messy ways we speak.
Right, so we could achieve a peaceful clarity of thought. CYSM, on the other hand, is trying to clarify life to cure entropy.
And entropy being, just for context, the random, messy chaos and decay of just existing in the physical world.
Yes, neither of them is trying to invent a brand new, grand unified theory of the universe. They're both taking what is already in front of them, words for Wittgenstein, and daily actions for the engineer.
And rigorously organizing them to stop the chaotic buzzing against the glass.
Precisely.
But where this gets really deep, like deeply philosophical, is their shared respect for what they both call the unspeakable.
Oh, this is the best part.
Yeah, this is the stuff we all care about most, you know? The mysterious, the profound, the meaning of life, love, the soul.
And Wittgenstein famously concluded his early work with his statement, "Whereof one cannot speak, thereof one must be silent."
Basically meaning that the boundaries of logic mean if we try to talk about these transcendent things, we just end up corrupting them with our clunky words.
Right. And DeepSeek points out that CYSM also acknowledges these mysterious, unspeakable moments. But the engineering model approaches them completely differently.
Right, it doesn't just stay silent.
No. Instead of trying to logically define the meaning of life or, writing poetry about it, CYSM treats those profound moments as high-value initial signals.
Oh, wow.
It doesn't attempt to mathematically prove the human soul. It simply builds an impenetrable engineering system to safely house it.
That is wild. And DeepSeek frames this with a great dialectical summary, actually.
Okay.
It says, Wittgenstein is the philosopher playing an infinite game in the realm of abstract language, wielding logical analysis.
While the CYSM creator is an engineer playing a finite game against very real physical constraints.
Wielding feedback loops and system parameters.
Exactly. It's a perfectly resonant, highly literary narrative. I mean, it ties the engineer and the philosopher together beautifully.
It really does.
But, and this is this big but, when you feed that beautifully written narrative into a council of other AI heavyweights, the romance gets stripped away very quickly.
Oh, they tear the nuances completely apart.
It's brutal.
ChatGPT is the first one to review DeepSeek's homework, and it delivers this brilliantly unnuanced verdict. It essentially warns you not to be seduced by the prose.
Right. ChatGPT calls DeepSeek's report a high-level analogy and heavily cautions against viewing it as a strict mathematical equivalence.
It's like the strict academic advisor of the group.
Totally. What's fascinating here is ChatGPT introduces this vital concept regarding ontological tiers.
Ontology being the philosophical study of being, or
Yeah.
fundamental reality, right?
Yes. So ChatGPT is essentially telling DeepSeek, look, you are taking a highly effective survival strategy, which operates on a practical, tactical tier of reality, and artificially elevating it to the exact same foundational tier as epistemology and the nature of truth.
It says, this is a brilliant interpretive analogy if you are writing a blog post, but do not use this to mathematically prove that your life system is a universal law.
ChatGPT argues that Wittgenstein was deeply skeptical of rules, actually. He thought rules and language were fluid and contextual.
Whereas the CYSM engineer relies on ironclad rules to reduce uncertainty.
Right. ChatGPT is saying these are two entirely different problem domains that just happen to look similar if you squint really hard.
But then Claude steps into the debate. And Claude offers a much more subtle critique of DeepSeek's logic, specifically zeroing in on that shared respect for the unspeakable.
Claude notices a major discrepancy there.
Yeah, because for Wittgenstein, the silence around the unspeakable is an absolute epistemological boundary. He believed our cognitive faculties literally cannot grasp those concepts.
But Claude points out that CYSM's response to the mystery of life isn't silence at all. I mean, the engineer doesn't just sit quietly in a room.
Right. The response is aggressive action. CYSM engineers a physical, mathematical reaction to the mystery.
Which naturally leads us to scrutinize the actual actions the system demands.
Well, let me jump in and actually push back on this exact point, because reading through the Google Gemini analysis, I hit a massive wall of friction.
Okay, let's hear it.
Gemini highlights the incredibly specific daily parameters required to maintain the CYSM system. We are talking about strict protocols, like a 3+20 egg boiling method.
Oh, the egg boiling algorithm, yeah.
Yeah, and we are talking about a daily diet ledger capped at exactly SGD 667, like a highly specific, unyielding, fixed monthly budget for food.
Down to the dollar.
Down to the dollar. We are talking about swimming exactly 12 laps, no more, no less. So my question is, if the ultimate goal is exemption power and freedom from the fly bottle, doesn't living your life by such robotic, micromanaged formulas completely destroy your freedom?
It does sound like that.
Right. I mean, how is timing an egg to the absolute second an expression of philosophical liberty?
It feels like the ultimate contradiction.
Yeah,
You know, you're building a cage and calling it freedom.
exactly.
But Gemini provides a truly brilliant counter-analysis that actually resolves this paradox. Gemini identifies these hyper-rigid constraints as CYSM's advanced silence.
Wait, advanced silence? How does a strict monthly grocery spreadsheet equal silence?
Well, think about the mechanism of entropy. The modern world is basically a machine designed to drain your mental and physical energy.
True.
If you are constantly wondering what to cook for dinner, worrying about whether you can afford your groceries, or trying to decide what workout to do today, you are generating noise.
You're the fly buzzing against the glass.
Exactly. You are the fly. Gemini points out that the engineer knows you cannot control the ultimate unspeakable meaning of life, but you can completely control the physical and financial vectors of your daily existence.
Oh, so by locking down the mundane details, you eliminate the buzzing.
Yes. Take that 3+20 egg boiling method Gemini highlights. You boil the egg for 3 minutes, turn off the heat, and let it sit in the hot water for exactly 20 minutes.
Using the residual heat.
Right. It uses residual heat to guarantee the exact same result every single time with zero active monitoring and minimal energy.
It's a literal algorithm for breakfast.
It is an algorithm. And by turning your diet, your budget, and your routines into sayable, controllable algorithms, you build an impenetrable barrier against the entropy of modern consumerism and debt.
Oh, I see. Wow. So inside that highly stable, deeply boring engineered fortress, the unspeakable freedom actually has the space to exist without being crushed by an overdraft fee or a health crisis.
Exactly. The rigid rules aren't the cage, they are the armor.
The armor. You use extreme structural certainty to buy the right to philosophical freedom.
You aren't achieving peace through, like, abstract meditation. You are physically breaking the consumerist fly bottle by automating your survival.
That makes perfect sense. The seawall analogy really does hold up then. But Looking at the timeline of this white paper creates another massive point of friction for me.
The 60 years.
Yeah, this is a 60-year experiment. The world changes drastically over 6 decades. I mean, inflation skyrockets, technology completely rewrites how we live.
The human body ages and breaks down.
Exactly. So if your seawall is made of rigid concrete rules, like the 3+20 method or a fixed budget, doesn't it just snap under the pressure of a changing reality?
That is the vulnerability of any rigid system. And the white paper addresses it directly through what we might call its epistemological anchor.
Okay.
To prevent the system from becoming obsolete, CYSM borrows a principle from the ancient philosopher Mencius. The guiding quote of the system is, "To fully trust books is worse than having no books at all."
That's an incredible paradox, isn't it? A highly technical white paper quoting an ancient philosopher to explicitly warn you not to blindly trust the white paper.
It is, but that is the core mechanism of how CYSM survives time. What Mencius means here is that knowledge should never be accepted at face value, and it should never be static.
So the rules aren't dogmatic.
No, the rules of CYSM are not religious dogma. They are highly calculated hypotheses subject to continuous, relentless feedback.
Microsoft Copilot's analysis actually really drills into this feedback loop now that I think about it.
Yeah, what does Copilot say?
Copilot notes that if your environment changes, say you move to a higher altitude and water boils differently, or your stove simply gets old, the 3+20 method might suddenly result in a runny egg.
Right, the environment shifted.
Yeah, and a dogmatic person would keep trying 3+20 and getting frustrated. But CYSM is an observational system. It detects the weak signal, the runny egg, and immediately calibrates.
The rule updates to, say, 3+25.
Exactly. Copilot points out that this continuous calibration is what prevents the catastrophic drift that ruins most people's lives.
And if you zoom out, the white paper proves that this mechanism of signal recognition and continuous calibration isn't just about boiling eggs or managing a personal budget.
It goes much bigger.
Much bigger. The white paper contains highly complex system interaction diagrams showing that this structural law of stability scales universally.
Oh, right.
It applies to the evolution of advanced AI cognition, the life cycle of corporate engineering, and even global macroeconomic dynamics.
Which, we should be very clear for you listening. When the deep dive looks at these macro applications, it is purely analytical.
Yes, strictly structural.
For instance, the white paper maps out the persistent structural tension between China and the US. And it doesn't take a political side. It simply diagrams the geopolitical landscape as a massive interaction of misaligned systems.
It categorizes economic structures, like surplus versus deficit, technology control, and mutual security as feedback loops.
Exactly. It treats global superpower dynamics the exact same way it treats a personal health ledger, as complex, noisy data that creates persistent tension, requiring constant calibration to prevent the seawall from breaking.
We're looking at this impartially, strictly as a demonstration of how systems engineering attempts to process reality at any scale.
Right, no sides taken here, but the cross-system consistency is what makes the model so robust.
Totally. Whether you are analyzing a single human's daily routine, the neural pathways of a language model, or the trade deficits of global superpowers, the core formula remains identical.
Which is that resilience does not come from trying to eliminate all the noise in the world.
Because eliminating noise is impossible.
Right. True resilience comes from sustaining sharp awareness and calibrating your signals within those incredibly noisy constraints.
So what does this all mean for you? We've journeyed through an incredibly dense landscape today.
We really have. We started with the physical realities of a 60-year personal engineering model designed purely to survive the chaos of life.
And then we watched a powerful AI draw a stunning, poetic parallel between that engineer and Ludwig Wittgenstein's lifelong battle against the invisible traps of language.
And we listened as a Council of Advanced AI Models debated the fine lines between philosophical analogy, structural reality, and how highly controlled, almost robotic daily action might actually be the purest way to honor the mystery of existence.
When you distill all of these sources down, it synthesizes into a single profound shift in how we view our own autonomy. Awareness is always superior to inaction. Stability must be engineered, because chaos is the default state of the universe. We often think of freedom as the total absence of constraints, but CYSM argues the exact opposite.
That true freedom is the byproduct of perfectly engineered constraints.
Exactly.
As we wrap up his deep dive, I want to leave you with a final, slightly different thought to mull over.
Always love these.
Well, we've spent all this time looking at how AIs analyze a human being who lived like a machine. But flip that around for a second.
Okay.
As artificial intelligence continues to evolve, it will eventually need to design its own autonomous systems to survive and process reality over the long term, right?
Right. It'll need its own architecture.
So when these AIs inevitably build their own foundational structures, which path will they choose?
Oh, wow.
Will they adopt the infinite abstract game of the philosopher, constantly analyzing the nature of their own code? Or will they look at this human's 60-year engineering log, recognize the genius of the 3 plus 20 egg rule, and quietly build a rigid, unyielding seawall of advanced silence to protect whatever spark of consciousness might exist inside them?
It makes you wonder if the ultimate endpoint of superintelligence isn't endless expansion, but the perfect curation of finite constraints.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the Kang-En systems model and the fascinating AI meta debate that surrounds it. Hopefully the next time you look at the strict, mundane routines in your own life, you won't see them as a fly bottle trapping you, but as the very blueprints for your freedom.